Okay, so my name is Ruth Killeen. This is my colleague Jennifer Bolton, and we have a glamorous assistant today in Connor who's going to help us do this presentation and not mess it up. Oh, sorry, I'm reading all the courses you're doing and I'm just delighted. There's such a variety in this group, it's fantastic. So what does the student budgeting advice, what does budgeting mean? That's the face that I normally see. Is everybody seeing that? That screen is sharing? Yeah? Yeah, great, thank you. I'm looking for interaction from everybody. Yes, thanks, Zach, that's fantastic. So most people, when I talk about budgeting, they kind of go, oh, I just can't. But it's really quite simple. Budgeting is working out a plan to make things possible so that you can have a really good college experience and not be broke all of the time. There may be good days and bad days, but generally speaking, we want to support you to not feel stressed about money. So what do? We provide a one-to-one service for all registered students and prospective students. So we'll look at, how you're getting on with your money, what your plan is. Are you accessing all possible sources of income? Is your SUSI correct? Is there social welfare you could be applying for? And also looking at the internal and external funding options. And I'll go through some of those funding options with you. So first off, everybody gets a little stressed about the fees. I'm sure when you were registering, or if you have not registered yet, and you're going in and looking at it going, why are they asking me for all this money? Basically, the way the fees works is there's three sections: the tuition fees, and that comes under the free fees scheme from the government. So if it's your first time in college, then you're fine. And if you've been resident for 3 of the last 5 years and you're in an eligible course in an eligible institution, and pretty much all of ours are, you should be fine, and you'll never hear anything about tuition fees because they'll be paid and sorted out by our fees office. The next bit then is the student contribution, and that's €3,000. So if you're eligible for fee support from SUSI, you may get half or all of that paid. If you're not eligible for SUSI support, there are payment options to pay down those fees. I would say contact the Fees and Grants office because there's an easy payment plan option there. You can pay weekly, monthly, you can pay it down, but if SUSI's paying your fees, they will pay it directly to our fees office and you won't hear any more about it. So it's wonderful. And then there's the student levy. Unfortunately, you all have to pay that, and it's €150. That might not look like that much money, but it can be a lot at the start of first year, especially if you're looking at accommodation and you're suddenly stressing about all the books you're hearing about and all the everything else you're hearing about. So if needs be, you can pay that in installments, but ideally, if you can pay the €150 at the start, it takes a lot of stress out of your situation. So SUSI, the magic name that we all hear about, what do? They can pay a fee grant, which is either half of 3,000 student contribution or all of 3,000 student contribution, and possibly a maintenance grant depending on the income that you're going to receive. So how do they work all that out? This is not meant to be a confusing table, but it can be a little bit complicated. There's a number of pillars. They have 5 pillars they look at, but effectively, okay, when does the student levy need to be paid? At registration, ideally, but I guarantee you will not be progressing into second year if it's not paid. And there's a lot of students around campus who have been panicking in the last week because they forgot about it last year. So I would say pay it. If you have a part-time job, will that affect your SUSI grant? It might. Let's just say I'll go through how they affect that. No hassle, Deborah and Andrew, I'll go through that now in just a second, but it's a really, really good question. So how this works with SUSI is they will count your income plus the income of your legal guardians. So if you're living at home with one parent or 2 parents or somebody who's acting in the role of parent for you and they are legally in that position, they're your legal guardian. There's all sorts of different mixtures, so we don't presume that everybody has the same situation, and SUSI certainly don't. So if the income is under, if there is 0 to 3 dependents, what dependents mean is other people who are relying on the same income pot. So you plus your siblings. So if there's you plus 2 siblings, that's 0 to 3 dependents once they're all still relying on the parents. So you plus your brother and sister in school, we've got 0 to 3 dependents. I have had students who actually fit in the 8 or more dependents category, but they are rare because families that size we just don't seem to have as many of them as we used to. But if that's relevant, then you're looking down that column to see where in the income limit you need to fit in order to be eligible for SUSI. So let's just take the 0 to 3 to start with. So if the income in the household, your income plus your legal guardian's income, then your income needs to be under 54,240. And if there's somebody else in college at the same time, so you see this increment for a relevant person, then they say you've got a brother or sister who's doing a degree or a master's, or a parent who's doing a degree or a master's, then they can add 4830 onto it, onto the 54,240, and that increases your chances of getting a higher rate of SUSI. Oh yeah, Jenny's answered that perfectly. So when you're filling in your registration, you'll be asked to put in your SUSI application number, and SUSI and the fees office communicate with each other. So don't be stressing about that bit, it'll all get sorted. So on the maintenance grants then, you have under 45 kilometres and over 45 kilometres. So if you're living in Maynooth, you're under 45 kilometres. If you're living in Donegal, you're definitely over 45 kilometres from the college. So they counted from your home address, your permanent home address, to the university campus. And if you're eligible for a maintenance grant, it would be dependent on the income coming into the household. So it's worth kind of knowing where you think you should be to see if SUSI got it right, and if not, come and talk to myself or Jennifer, and we'll have a look at that for you and review your SUSI and see if we can sort things out. So that's that one. That's the postgraduate contributions, which we're not quite looking at yet today, but you know, keep it in mind, there is SUSI support for postgrad study. So I know somebody put up in the chat there that they're doing a couple of art subjects with a view to becoming a teacher. So if you're eligible for SUSI, you may get assistance then for your PME later on. Good to know at this stage, because you don't want to be put off at the beginning. Okay, so this is all around the grant eligibility for SUSI. So SUSI is still open for applications. It stays open till the end of October. So keep that in mind. Don't rule yourself out. Have a look at the eligibility reckoner, but also have a look at, you know, could I be eligible? If in doubt, apply is always our advice. If you have an application in and something's changed, or some of the facts aren't quite correct that went into SUSI, that can be fixed. But if you don't apply, there's a very restricted number of reasons that you can put in a late application. So, you know, really, I would say apply, even if it's refused, and we can always go back in and look for a review on that. So there's some really good guides for when you're applying. You may have already seen them and use them. I hope you have. Be aware of the option to appeal. You have 30 days to appeal your grant decision, but you need a solid grounds for appeal. So it needs to be within the SUSI system. You have to be appealing based on a SUSI rule, not just because, you know, it doesn't look fair or it's not, you don't see why they haven't done it. It has to, yeah, you need to understand SUSI to appeal. So do reach out if that's your situation. You think SUSI's got it wrong. Myself and Jenny, we have direct contact with SUSI. We can review your case individually. We can talk to them. You will still have to take the steps, but we will advise you on how to do that.
Yeah, so I just advised someone before this meeting about appealing and changing their circumstances for SUSI. So it is well worth coming and having a chat with us if you're in doubt.
Those insights are so useful because we don't expect you to know how SUSI works. That's our job, and we'll guide you and advise you. So never be shy about asking those questions. And just Jenny just mentioned that very timely, the change of circumstances provision is if something has changed in the household income, because when you put in your information to SUSI, they're looking at the income from the year before. So that's 2020 this year. But we all know 2020 was a very strange year and incomes may have changed dramatically since then. So say the income has reduced. That could change how SUSI assess your application. So you can put in a request to them to do a change of circumstances review on your application and assess the income for 2021. And that change of circumstance also covers non-financial situations. So say there's been a bereavement in the household and there may be a marriage breakdown and other things that have changed the makeup of your household. So quite honestly, I would be saying if anything has dramatically changed, have a look at it, talk to myself or Jenny. There's no timeline on the change of circumstances. You can put 10 of them in a year if you have a horrible year, and I really hope it doesn't happen to you, but if needs be, we can. Now, coming back to that part-time income question that you thought I'd forgotten about, but I haven't, this is where the holiday earnings disregard comes in. So basically, any part-time income that you have, that you earn during term time, counts as income for Susie. When they're working out those figures we looked at a few minutes ago, they will count all of your part-time income. They will also count anything you earned over the holidays. So that's June, July, August, 2 weeks at Christmas and 2 weeks at Easter. And there's a slight bit of leeway around the June, July, August now, depending on the college situation or when the college is open and when it closes. But basically, any holiday periods, Susie can ignore up to 4,500 that you earned during that time, but you need to tell them when you earned what you earned. Now, cash in hand doesn't count, Andrew. No, that doesn't exist. Susie have access to the revenue system, so they will see anything you earn through the tax system. But if you're being paid cash in hand, that's so unreliable and such irregular income that I'd be really surprised if they can't track it. Up to you if you wish to tell them about it, but how do you prove it? It's a nightmare, so I would just not mention it, to be brutally honest, because it's so hard to predict, to be honest. Okay, sorry, I'm being very honest apparently. So the holiday earnings, how you put that, no hassle, how you put that in is there, you can submit your pay slips for the periods that you were on holidays from college when you're putting in your application for Susie, and you can say, look, I earned 3,000 last summer, but it was between June, July and August, it wasn't during term time. And Susie will say, okay, let's take 3,000 off the income. And I would be saying that from that point of view, I'm losing my train of thought, I'm so sorry. So you earn 3,000, they're taking that off. That could make you eligible for a maintenance grant where you weren't before. It could make you eligible for Susie where you weren't before. So it's quite a big deal. So keep it in mind. There's also a holiday earnings form on the Susie website that you can get your employer to fill up. So have a look at it, but just remember you need to be in education before and after the holiday period. So if you're coming in, say, as a mature student who was working but was in, part-time or full-time employment, but not in education, that holiday earnings disregard will only start for you next summer. So you have to be in education on either side of the holiday period. So there's the Susie contacts. I would strongly recommend any communication you have with Susie, do it in writing, ideally by email, so you have a record of the conversation, and also so you can be really clear that your query has been answered. We do get a lot of confusion coming back from the help desk because you're not sure of their process. They're giving you standard answers and it's not necessarily making the sense that you need to. But as I say, if in doubt, come to us. So quick look at some of the costs you could be facing, and I'm nearly afraid to even look at the first one because I know how tough it's been to find accommodation this year. But do keep an eye on the Home Finder page if you're looking for off-campus accommodation, because I know all the on-campus accommodation is full at this point. So have a look at the Home Finder page because that'll give you options in Maynooth and in the surrounding towns. So keep in mind that you don't have to live in Maynooth itself. Connor can probably attest to this. It's handier, but that there's plenty of transport links for, say, Kilcock, Leixlip, Selbridge, Lucan. A lot of the surrounding towns have either train or bus links, or some of them have both, like Leixlip where I live, and Kilcock. So it's really important to kind of widen the net a little bit. When you get so focused on one town, it's really, really stressful. The other bit, the travel, keep an eye on the travel guide on the Maynooth University webpage, because there are a huge number of private bus companies that will be starting their services from Monday, and you can commute to Maynooth quite easily. And you may not have thought there was a bus coming through that, because you just never needed to know it before, but have a look and see if it's relevant. And it might be a lot easier than trying to get accommodation in Maynooth, especially for the first couple of months.
I'll just add on to what you were saying there, Ruth, about the whole traveling side of things. So when I first was commuting, like Maynooth is a bit of an awkward town depending on where you are from. So I was coming from Laois in first year. So my initial, if I was to take public transport, I would have had to go from Laois into Dublin and then back out to Maynooth.
Yeah.
But now with these private buses that are organised for us, it goes straight from Laois all the way to Maynooth, obviously touching a few towns in between as well. So do have a look at that website if you feel like you're in an awkward town or know that public transport, you have to get 2 or 3 different modes of it, that this is the handiest way. Might take maybe a bit longer, but it's at least just one mode of transport.
Absolutely. And it's direct and it'll drop you off on campus. A lot of them have their spot on campus, and you can have a snooze on the bus or you can study. And just to keep in mind then as well, the student leave card, if you're commuting from a slightly less far away place than Laois, that the Slevin coach from Tala, Michael, is 35 a week. Just flacking that one in there.
I was just typing it. I was like, I know that answer.
Oh, sorry. I was so saying, I'm not sure if Jenny knows that one yet, because I have been studying that. So, but just to put that in perspective, Michael, if you were traveling on a student leave card using bus, Lewis and train, you'd be spending 30 a week. So Slevins are quite good value. Most of the other buses are anywhere between 50 and 65. And just looking at if you're driving, because some students are, to get your student leave card, MSU, they will have it for you. They're fantastic. They're open for applications for student leave cards at the moment. And the student leave card, unless you have a child leave card, then the student leave card is the cheapest option for you. As I said, 30 per week for combined transport. If you're just on Dublin bus, it's 20 per week capped, and it shouldn't go above that. If it does, talk to them, because there's a problem with your leave card. As in, talk to the leave card people, not the Students' Union. They wouldn't thank me for that. So if you're driving to campus, the parking permits opened up, I think, this week, and you can apply for that. That's €40 for the year. Now, that's not going to guarantee you a spot on campus, but it allows you to park in a student space on campus. Please remember there are 2 overflow car parks on the Moyclair Road. Have a good look at the parking site if you're driving, the parking page and all of the maps, and come up and get a bit familiar with it. When you're coming up for registration, have a good drive around, see where the student spaces are. We've a bit of building work coming on at the moment, which is kind of messing with our spaces, but I'm hoping now when the permits come in that'll filter that out a bit. And also to keep in mind, there are specific car sharing spaces that are only open to, sorry, I think Blessing is asking about the leave card. So that's it caps at 20 per week on a Dublin bus, but it depends on if you're getting a couple of buses or the distance bus that Connor's talking about, it could be higher, but if you're getting Dublin bus, student leave cards caps at 20 per week for bus only. So the car sharing, yes, if you can get a few people to come with you, it saves you spending so much money on petrol. It shares your cost, but it also means that you can get some of those precious purple spaces for car sharing spots only. Also, please remember, especially if you're coming in from secondary school, do not buy all the books. You were so, look at Connor going, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Please don't do it, especially not the law books.
Just don't do it. unless the lecture specifically says buy the book, or you find yourself that you will be reading the book every day for materials, do not buy it. Chances are your textbook or the materials you need are going to be either in some sort of document or somewhere online that you can access it on the Maynooth University website, library search even, or B, it's in the library itself that you can rent out for if you need it for assignments and stuff.
I love this being supported by a student, because I come in and I say it and the students are looking at me, I've always bought all the books, I'm supposed to buy all the books, but they're so dear. They're
too expensive. Like I just finished up on law, and like the law textbooks were insane. I just had to, like, the book's bigger than my head, first of all, and then the price of it is just insane. So for any law students, actually a quick tip for you, I might have mentioned in the last talk, so some you've heard of already, but there's the nutshells for certain law modules, which is the equivalent of your revise wise or the less stress more success. It's basically the same as that, just for law modules. Other subjects, I'm not too sure. You might have the same equivalent, but
the nutshells are great. Yeah. And they're about 25 quid, as far as I know, versus some of the law books, which could be 200 to 300. Now, I'm not saying that'll be sufficient, but I would say combined with your library supports, just take your time, see what you're using on a regular basis, and don't get so caught up in the fact that you've been handed this massive book list and you need them all, because you don't. And you will need some of them, but Connor's advice is amazing there, and it's great having that coming from a student. Basically then we're looking at printing and stationery. So there's the Maynooth University Bookshop. I was told yesterday by the Students' Union that they're the cheapest place on campus for printing. I can't give you an exact figure because they didn't give me that information, but the library is 8 cents per page, and I'm reliably informed the Students' Union is cheaper, so keep that in mind. But just remember, if you are a HERE student and you're getting the contribution onto your MyCard, you can use that to pay for printing in the library, and you can use it on campus in the bookshop to buy some of your books, your stationery. Hopefully not hoodies, because they're not necessarily as valuable as some of the books might be. And then medical expenses. We have a health centre here in the Student Services building, and that's staffed by a GP and 2 nurses daily. And it's free for all registered students. So if anything goes wrong for you or you're worried about anything, please come in. And what I would be saying to you as well is we have a mental health nurse there now. She started with us this year. She's a really amazing resource just for students who are going through a particularly difficult time, and that can happen. And we also have a counselling service that's free for all registered students, and they are fantastic. There's a big bunch of people there upstairs. We always call them the upstairs people because they're on the 2nd and the 1st floor, and we're on the ground floor, and they are amazing. So that's free. Once you're a registered student, you can link in with them. Even if you're just kind of feeling a little bit overwhelmed, they can be really helpful. I think you're all very lucky because you do have access to the MAP ambassadors like Connor, who are a great source of, peer information. They're brilliant. But also, if you're feeling just a bit overwhelmed or everything's getting on top of you, that there is a safe place for you to go and talk about it. We also have our chaplain, Kieran, who is very focused on student well-being, or if there are any kind of spiritual issues you wish to discuss, he will happily sit down over a cup of tea and go through whatever you would like to talk about. He's a really good guy. Oh, how did I move on? Okay, give me a second, guys. I'm doing something peculiar here.
Your PowerPoint's getting a bit too excited, is it?
It is, it's running away. It doesn't want me to talk about grocery shopping, and probably neither do you. Yeah, just try and focus on a healthy diet. Connor will tell you that that's very important.
So, if you're living in Maynooth, don't try not get into a habit of buying takeaways or oven pizzas every day of the week.
Massively expensive, not good for you.
I'm not saying it happens to me personally, I'm saying it happens to students.
Not saying that. No, it happens. It can happen to some students, Connor. So just try and remember that, and don't be shy about bringing your lunch on campus. It's normal. Everybody does it. You are not expected to go and eat in Phoenix or Fusion or Starbucks every day, because realistically it's not affordable for most of our students. So don't be shy, maybe about bringing your food on campus, and just try and be as healthy as you can. Okay, now it's not going to move on again. Woo, it's working.
There's
okay.
The Student Union bar on campus. Beside it, there's a place called Your Space where you can bring in your food. There's actually microwaves there for commuters and stuff.
Isn't. Sorry, Connor, they haven't reopened that. No, I'm really sorry, because there's supposed to be microwaves upstairs in Phoenix, and I don't know if they're going to be reopening. But I asked the Students' Union, they've turned the MySpace into their front office. So that's where you go for your student leap card and all the rest of it. The students' bar will be opening quite soon, and they've put in seating for about 100 outside and little covered wooden tables, and it all looks fabulous. So they do food.
Nothing wrong with a sandwich anyway.
No, bring in your sandwich, sit outside the Students' Union and eat it.
And there's those soup canisters that you can buy. So you have soup, you put it in and you bring it with you, and it keeps it hot. So yeah.
Now there may be microwaves available on campus. We just haven't had confirmation yet. And as far as that, I spoke to the president of the Students' Union, and he said they're not definite yet, but they don't think they'll have the microwaves available. So sorry, Connor, that's one of your best options, just removed.
Yes.
Yeah, sad face, absolutely. So other possible costs you may face could be placements, depending on your course. I think I saw a youth and community work popping up there. You will probably have placement at a certain time in your course, and that can have its own costs of travel and all the rest of it in that. So don't be shy about talking to us if that's causing you financial strain, and we will do what we can to help. Field trips, some of the costs will be covered by Susie if it's mandatory, but you have to do the field trip and then put in your receipts to Susie. So it's not like you're going to get the money before you go. And it's important to keep that in mind when you're planning ahead. If you're a science student, I think I saw some very fancy looking science students flying by there. Lab coats, lab fees. Some of the courses you need certain softwares for. Nothing is massively expensive, but it all adds up when you're trying to cover it all from your limited student income. The other one I would strongly promote spending on, which sounds weird, is the clubs and societies. It's a really, really good way to mix with other like-minded people. So whether it's the Harry Potter Society, the yoga clubs, whatever it happens to be that your interests lie in, be open to that. I think it's €2 still to join the clubs. That's all it was the last time I was on campus. And there's a huge variety, and I think that's under MU Life. So if you don't find what you want, talk to Mary or Mary, who run the clubs and societies now, and you can set up your own club and get a few members in. Connor, had you something to add there?
Yeah, I was just going to throw in that we have a clubs and societies information talk tomorrow. So if you do have any interest in joining them, hop onto that, and we'll be explaining with you exactly what they are and how to join them as well. So it'll be like clubs and societies day where they all have their little, it might be virtual again this year, but they might have their little virtual pop-ups where you get to chat to people on the society. And like Ruth said there is quite a good variety of societies. There's definitely going to be something that spikes your interest, or something that you have no idea about, but the curiosity is going to get for you. With that, I'll just say join it and go for it. Like there's literally
Absolutely. Just get mixed in. I'm just seeing your question there around the childcare. There is no specific support for childcare, but because the government have finally stepped up and are providing a certain amount of support for childcare, there is a creche on campus, and that takes children from 1 year to 5 years. So kind of once they've turned 1 up to 5. But you can, we can look at financial supports through the Student Assistance Fund, and I'll go through that in a minute. And the costs for Erasmus was on the previous slide and I skipped it. So Carolina, thank you very much for asking that question. It depends on where you go. If you're on an Erasmus year, I recommend you start thinking about it now in first year. And I know that sounds weird, but it's a great year if you could do it, but it is an expensive year. So your Susie, depending on whether you're eligible or not, if you're eligible for Susie, your fees are paid here because you're still a Maynooth University student. And if you're in receipt of a maintenance grant, you send a letter into Susie at that point to let them know you're on a mandatory Erasmus year, and they will review, and you're pretty much guaranteed to be in the over 45 kilometres section at that point. So you may find your maintenance grant increases. There's also an Erasmus grant, but that does not pay until you've completed 3 months of your Erasmus, and it's paid in instalments. Am I really selling it, Rebecca? That must be so good. You'll be able to find that out from your department. Obviously, I have timed this bloody presentation somehow, so it's decided I'm not talking quickly enough. It must move on. So yeah, I would be kind of saying to you, talk to your department to see if it's relevant, but a lot of students do it. I would say stay within Europe if you want the Erasmus grant. Once you're going to kind of China or America or somewhere like that, you're talking about a lot of money, but great opportunity if you can do it. International office, they're the people to talk to, and your own department. Okay, so other possible costs. Oh, we did cover that one. I'm gone back too far. So just the social welfare options then. I don't know if any of you are looking at those. Then I would be saying absolutely. If you were still on PUP, you can't be on PUP as a full-time student from the 7th of September, but they did make an allowance that you could move from PUP to back to education allowance. Just to note, with back to education allowance, regardless of your income, if you're awarded back to education allowance, you will not get a maintenance grant from Susie. but you are financially better off on Back to Education plus fees from Susie than the other way round, as in no Back to Education allowance and just your fees and maintenance grant. But I would say there are other social welfare payments that you can retain, and you could be eligible for a different level of Susie. So I would say link in with myself and Jennifer if you're not sure. So there's certain illness payments, one parent family payment, those kind of things. Talk to us, we'll have a look at it with you. And you may actually come off Back to Education allowance to go back onto your original payment, and improve your situation, get that maintenance grant. But finally, we're at the Student Assistance Fund. I'm going to have to talk quick because we've got 7 minutes left on our talk, and I don't want you all missing out on something else because of this, but this is important. Student Assistance Fund, financial help for students, means tested. It's open to full and part-time students. It's a once-off payment, but you can apply more than once. And as Jenny has so beautifully put in to the chat in a couple of times there, just book an appointment with us. That's the only way to apply for the Student Assistance Fund. We'll do the assessment. Even if you're booking to just look at your budget, you may be eligible for funding, or if you're booking specifically for the Student Assistance Fund, we may find something else in your budget that can benefit you. Non-judgmental. Yes, you can get the 1916 bursary and the Susie grant. I have slides on this. I will show them to you in 2 seconds. So just to flag as well, there is an emergency fund, and that has been used quite a bit in the last couple of years. So for something sudden or unexpected, like a pandemic, we can provide funding if there's been a financial impact for you as a student. There is a short-term loan as well. That's kind of, let's say Connor here was coming into college and left his wallet on the bus, had no cards, no bus ticket, no cash, no way to get home, pops over to our student support hub. He can borrow up to €50 on the day, and that way he can get home and get things sorted and hopefully get his wallet back as well. And there's also food vouchers. So say, for example, you visit our health centre, you're told you need a prescription, so you can either get the prescription or you can feed yourself for the rest of the week. Make contact, we can organise a food voucher, and you don't have to repay that. The cash loan you do repay, that's the only one of any of these sources of funding I'm talking about that you need to repay. Okay, the laptop loan scheme. Okay, there was a question about a specific laptop that popped up earlier there. Just to be aware, especially given that we're in Launchpad, you're all part of our target group, so you would be eligible on the target group side to apply for a laptop if you do not have a laptop or PC or access to IT equipment. So basically the rules are you have to not have it, and you mustn't have the financial ability to fix it. So have a look at that. The applications, I must have done that one a while ago, because the laptop loans link is through the Money Matters webpage, and I'll give that to you at the end. And that should be opening this month, but we haven't got a date yet. But have a look at it. If you're worried about IT, have a look at the laptop loans, but don't forget there are laptops available in the library that you can use on site. So there is something there for you today if you need it as a registered student. Now, 1916 bursary. That says 40 bursaries, but that is over Athlone, IT, DCU, Dundalk and Maynooth University. So we have 10 bursaries at 5,000 each. Your household income cannot exceed 24,500, and you have to be part of the target groups. To apply, you just go on to the 1916 bursary link on the Access Office webpage. You can have Susie and 1916 bursary. It is not counted as income by Susie. It's not counted as income by the by social welfare either. So it is massively helpful to have that. If you're eligible, there are a limited number of bursaries, but if you don't apply, you definitely don't get it. Now, as far as I'm aware, the application forms are not yet open. I'm not sure what the delay is, but it's definitely not Maynooth University's fault. So have a look at it. And they're the target groups. So quite a few of you may fit into that, and it doesn't affect anything else. You can still get Student Assistance Fund through myself and Jenny if you're getting this 5,000 payment, just to keep it in mind, but you cannot get it with any other scholarship. So if you've already been awarded an alternative scholarship, the 1916 will refuse you on that basis. A couple of contact points, and these slides will be available afterwards. Student Services, that's kind of the central desk here. Fees and Grants Office, don't bother ringing the phone, they're not answering it at this time of the year and they're not on site. And the academic advisory is working off-site as well, so the email address is your most useful tool. Rose, our academic advisor, is incredible. Anything academic, she will know the answer to it. I don't, so don't ask me and Jenny, because we don't know. We know the financials. They're just a few websites that we find useful and that students use relatively frequently. Threshold is tenants advice, the RTB if you're negotiating with your landlord, Workplace Relations Commission if you're having any issues with your employer. And that is us. So that's the Money Matters webpage. So the drop-in service, we would normally have run a drop-in on a Monday and Wednesday where you could just queue up and see one of us, but we've had to suspend that because of COVID. So we have what we call a queries form on our webpage. Just click on it, put your query in. There is no such thing as a stupid question. We have no problem with you asking stuff that even you might feel you're supposed to know. We don't expect you to. Ask us the questions. And I know there's more slides. So there's the 1916 bursary updated slide that was sent on. So the closing date for applications is the 15th of October, but we don't have an opening date yet. The academic supports, the Maths Support Centre, the library's amazing, the Writing Support Centre, both of those are incredible. Your MAP academic advisor, of course, they're all wonderful because we work really closely with MAP. Money Matters, you know, that's me and Jenny, we're just great. And Student Central are fabulous as well, making us all sound amazing. So there's the laptop loan, that's a picture of our website, and the technology transition programme. I'm not going to pretend I know exactly what that is, but your MAP academic advisor can tell you. And I think that is us done.